Namaste, aloha. My name is Janapati Das. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam on Canto 1, translated and purported upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who I offer my respects to. I'd like to also offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, Jagat Guru, Swarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada. And we're going to start with a little bit of chanting before we get into our class today. So please join along. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prishtayate Namasida Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prishtayate Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Hari Bol 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gauranga Chaitanya Gauranga Chaitanya Gauranga Chaitanya Gauranga Chaitanya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo. Amo Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Pashtayate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we are reading in chapter 2, the first canto, Divinity and Divine Service. So, divinity, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the service thereof, of which you should be doing in the service of God. Starting from text 13, Ataha Pumbir Dividyashtreshta Varnashram Vibhagasha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Hari Toshanam. Ataha, so Pumbihi, by the human being, Dividyashtreshtaha, O best among the twice born. Varnashram, the institution of 4 castes and 4 orders of life. Vibhagasha, by the division of Svanustitasya, of one's own prescribed duties. Dharmasya, occupational. Samsiddhi, the highest perfection. Hari, the personality of Godhead. Toshanam, pleasing. Translation, O best among the twice born. It is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and order of life is to please the personality of Godhead. And so any spiritual master in the lineage this is their conclusion. Whatever one does is to please the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life, and we've talked about that, the Varna Ashram system. The Varna system is the castes, and then the ashram is the 4 social orders of life. The 4 castes are the intelligent caste, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. So respectively, that is Brahmana, intelligent, martial, because the Brahmana is the educated, like the teacher, the priestly caste, right? That is, job is in its social order is to, or not in social order, but in their caste, their work is to actively educate the populace about spiritual life. The martial caste is the Kshatriya caste, or the warrior administrative caste. Their job is to administer, to govern, to protect. And the productive caste is the Vaishya, or mercantile, the agriculturalists, the businessmen, whose job is to produce the goods by which society uses. And the labor caste is the Sudra, or the working class. There has to be workers. You know, if you have businessmen, you have to have workers, or people who support, who serve the other caste, to serve society. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification, not by birth. Then again, there are the 4 orders of life, namely the student life, brahmachari, the householder life, vanaprastha, the retired grihastha, and the devotional life, sannyasi. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life, otherwise no social institution can grow into a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above-mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. So you can actually kind of see remnants of, because society by natural will post themselves into, based on what they've learned in their growing up, will find their place in society according to whatever they were born into. But very little is it actually to please God. It's not to please God. It's mostly to please themselves, tried to in their search for pleasure and happiness. The institutional function of human society is known as a system as Varnashram Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Varnashram institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, i.e. realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for indriya priti, or sense gratification, as already discussed here and before, the institution of the Varnashram is utilized by selfish men to propose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. So this is very interesting. So actually, people have duties to do, but they should be to please God. But when it becomes diverted from that attention, then it becomes mostly about how do we please our sense gratification, and how does the stronger part of society manipulate, how do we manipulate the weaker society. And so that's a very interesting thing, because Shudras were originally, by their qualifications, they were considered part of society to be supportive of the workers, right? And without workers, you have nothing that you can produce. You can have great ideas, you can have concepts, you can have a company, but if you don't have the workers, then there's nothing to run on. So you have to keep the workers happy and satisfied. But the purpose was originally to please God, where now it's become a manipulate the working class, some cases as slave labor. And this is really interesting, because I remember we read earlier, a couple of weeks ago or last week, the purport in which Bhaktivedanta Swami says the completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. So their duty, their desire to work for money and whatnot is not for a better or higher purpose, but for their own attempted pleasure. And in the material world, that is unsatisfiable. It's not satisfied. It's never satisfied. So if you can never have enough desires. You want to scratch a couple desires, they'll produce 10 more desires. And so therefore, this is what we're facing, is a increasingly hellish civilization by which people manipulate each other. People try to strive for their own happiness, and so-called happiness and satisfaction, only to create more suffering. And people wonder why. Why is the thing so bad? Why are people so hateful towards each other? And this is the reason why, because of our consciousness. We don't have a solid Varnashram institution anymore. We don't do things for the pleasure of God. We just do them for the pleasure of ourselves and our endless pursuit of happiness, so-called happiness. In Kali Yuga, or the age of quarrel, the artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of the people know it well, that the divisions of caste and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high thinking, self-realization, and not for any other purpose. So those who have some wisdom and spiritual intention and know that this Varnashram system was originally sent to keep society running smoothly, for a common goal of higher thinking. We're elevating people's consciousness. Herein the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life, or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnashram Dharma, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 13. But we want to have a godless society. You know, we want to increasingly more and more God is being pushed out of society. We're making this a secular society without God. So we have the system, but we don't have the goal of why we do it. So our goal then becomes for humanism, or it's for the betterment of humanity, but that is never really worked out that way. I mean, this idea of humanism, humanistic society, has actually been propagated in communist societies like Stalin's Soviet Union, China, and other countries have just created not a equality among humans, but actually a great slaughter of millions of humans who didn't subscribe to or didn't fit into the picture of the state. So the humanistic society, while laden with good intentions, they say the path to hell is laid with good intentions, like gold bricks. So, text 14. That'd be interesting to know what text 14. We'll have to look that up. Chapter 4, verse 13, Bhagavad Gita. I don't think I have I don't have a Bhagavad Gita with me right here. Let's see, if I did, I could look it up real quickly. But we'll add that in to the comments. Text 14, chapter 2. Tasmad ekena manasha bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtitavyascha deyaha pujascha nityada. Tasmat, therefore, ekena, by one, manasa, attention of the mind. The mana means mind. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Sattvatam, by the devotees. Patihi, protector. Shrotavya is to be heard. Kirtavya is to be glorified. Cha, and. Deyeya, to be remembered. Pujya, to be worshipped. So coming from puj, to means to worship. Cha, and. Nityada, constantly. Translation, text 14. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. I like that, with one pointed attention. Manasa, which is manasha, the attention of the mind. The purpose of the mind, because the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. Usually our mind dictates to us what it wants, how it's going to run our life, whether it's contradicting itself constantly, which it does. One time you may want something, and then you find that doesn't satisfy you. Your mind's telling you to do something else, or the next day it's doing another thing. So you have to, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, my spiritual great-grandfather, would say, you have to beat the mind 100 times before bed. Because the mind is fickle, and if it has free reign on a smorgasbord of nonsense, it will go with it, and it will keep producing those things. But the best way to really tame the mind, or to have a focused mind, is to be glorifying Krishna, to be engaging the mind in kirtan, or in the process of sadhana bhakti. That will give the mind a much more attractive thing to work with, and then the mind becomes disciplined. So with one pointed attention of the mind, the one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. And Krishna is the protector, and therefore he will protect us. He will give us shelter from our mind, from the craziness of the world. Because really we try to take shelter in our mind in the things that the mind dictates to us, and the things of this world that we think will make us happy, the things which will benefit us some way or another, but they never do. And it really is false shelter. It's not a Shraya. Shraya is a shelter. Spiritual, the true shelter is Krishna. The fake shelter is the material world in Maya Devi. It will constantly tell you that it will give you protection from things, but it will never give you protection. So this is a very important point. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada says, if realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. That is actually the only purpose of life, is realization of the absolute truth. If in any one of the above mentioned castes and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshiping, are general occupations, without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the living being involve engagements in the four different principles of life, especially in modern society. All activities are more or less dependent upon hearing and glorifying. Any man from any social status becomes a well-known man in human society within a very short time, if he is simply glorified truly or falsely in the daily newspapers. So true. And now we don't have just newspapers. We have internet, we have social media, the cell phone, which is constantly making things go viral. We hear about things, we glorify things, we talk about things, but they're kind of coming and going like waves. They come and go, and they don't, we get on that crest of the latest thing to talk about, glorify about, to use our senses to babble about, and then it recedes, and nothing really satisfies, nothing changes, there is no wisdom or vision of how things will be better. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. Yeah, it's very amazing to me. It's kind of like, to me, what I always think of like politics is kind of like the Greek gods and goddesses. You have these people love to glorify people and prop them up, and if they see something that matches what they like, they think, oh, this almost like cult of personality. Nothing can go wrong with this person. These people, they're great, and all of a sudden all this stuff comes out about them, and then then they want to watch them destroyed. It's like watch them fall. So it's like they love glorifying them, but they also love to watch them crash. And so this is politics. We people come and go. Politicians tend to be kind of the same corrupt people. They get into the politics, and they're faulty human beings. So they're not perfect, and they always seem to let people down. Such propaganda by a false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. Yeah, Joe Schmo, they may just enjoy a happy life, but you put them in the sort of under the lights of fame, then all the stuff, then all their life comes out and open. their goods and their bads. And we all have faults. We all make mistakes. We do stupid stuff. And the opposing side will eventually dig that up and expose it to everyone. Like, oh, look how terrible this person really was. He was just saying, you know, he was the next Messiah. The only person who really you can actually trust is a devotee of Krishna, because they only have one intention, and their intention is to glorify Krishna and help others to come to know that as well. There may be some temporary reactions to some such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time, which is also why politics is a big waste of time. Unless you're doing that for some service, it's just a big waste of time. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact from the beginning of Janmadi Ashya Shloka of this Bhagavatam. The tendency is to glorify others, or hear others, must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness. And just a reminder of what Janmadi Ashya means, which will go back to the first verse in the questions by the sages. Janmadi Ashya is the source of all creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. So Krishna is the source of all things. So being the source of all, the supreme absolute truth, we should be engaging in discussion of that, of him, not of other temporary flash in the pan crests of waves of desire, you know, wasting your time just trying to go up and down those waves of material life. Text 15, Yad Anu Yashina Yukta Karma Granti Nibandama Bandanam Chindadi Danti Kovi Dash Tasha Kona Koliat Kata Ratim. Yat, which, Anyudya, remembrance, Ashina, sword, Yukta, being equipped with, Karma, reactionary work, Galatani, not, Nibandanam, internet, Chindanti, cut, Kovidaha, intelligent, Tasha, his, Kaha, who, na, not, Kuliat, shall do, Kata, messages, Latim, attention. Translation, text 15. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? So, in the knots of reactionary work, I love that, because our karma is like these knots that we constantly make more and more knots, and we're just trying to, you know, if you've ever like gotten something tied up like strings or guitar chords, you know, like they just get into these knots and you're like trying to pick them apart and you don't know where the beginning starts and the end goes, and you're just opening one but maybe making more knots. And our activities in this world is that we want to relieve all these knots that we've created from our reactionary work. But the sword in hand, cutting through the knots of karmic reaction, are the service to Krishna. There's the sword. That sword is the knowledge of the absolute truth that we get from our spiritual master. So we apply that sword and our karmic knots are relieved. But if we try to just untie them, we won't be able to do that by our own strength. The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruit of work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. So liberating is that nirvana, right? We've achieved the state of nirvana, which is non-attachment to material desires. We have come to the threshold of Brahma Bhuta, where true devotional service. That is liberation. The liberation. So by our activities in sadhana bhakti, we are actually becoming liberated already. So we don't, but the devotee is not really interested in attaining just liberation. We want to engage in loving relationships with Krishna. The liberation just happens naturally. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of personality of Godhead. So that's what the point. It automatically happens. We don't have to go out of our way to do these things. It's just the point we want to make, that, you know, there are so many particulars about people who want to solve the problems of human life, and they try to, you know, do this, do that, do this, do that, you know, act this way, do this way, you know, live this kind of lifestyle. These things just naturally fall into place when you just start chanting Krishna's names, and you apply the sadhana bhakti that in your life. These things naturally just fall into place. You may be a rank materialist. You may be a multitude of material desires that you act upon, that you engage in. But Krishna just says, the spiritual master just says, here, chant Krishna's names, eat prasadam. And then you find that, oh, I'm very attracted, so you do a little bit more service. But the greatest service that the spiritual master can give to a person, to anyone, is the chanting of Krishna's names, and that is the greatest service one can do. It is also the most powerful, that will help cut through these knots of karmic reaction. The liberation automatically follows one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, are transcendental to the modes of material energy. So another really important thing, read the Krishna book, or we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the pastimes of Krishna and his various incarnations and energies. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. So very nice. Every night, pull out that Krishna book, read some Krishna book. Liberation from material bondage is, therefore, a byproduct of devotional service. And I also make the point, the pitch, if you're new to this channel, I do have the complete Krishna book videos. So if you get tired from reading or whatnot, you can go through and listen to the videos that I've done. I did a whole set of, I guess it's about 120 or so videos of the whole book. It's on this channel, so please subscribe to this channel. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. A byproduct. So people strive for elevationism or liberation. Buddhists want to be liberated from this material world. Monks want to be, yogis aspire to strive for liberation. And there is that story, of course, of the cobbler, right? The cobbler and the yogi who was practicing austerities to become liberated from the material world, and then the cobbler who was engaging in direct devotional service to Krishna, following the instructions of his spiritual master. Krishna had told Narayan had told Narada Muni that the cobbler was going to come back in the next life, but when the yogi had asked, it was going to be 100 lifetimes So you can be liberated, but not necessarily go back to Krishna because you still have desires. So it's actually just a byproduct, part of devotional service. It's kind of like comes with the package, you know. You don't like subscribe to the channel, just you don't subscribe to the magazine just for the benefit of liberation, because liberation is just an added benefit. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. So it's not enough to know something. You've got to act upon it. And everything about that, that's where we have karma yoga, the activity. We are active by nature. We are a spirit soul, so we have to act. And the highest form of action that we can engage in is in devotional service to God and to our spiritual master. So it's not enough to be told something. It's like my spiritual master has told me, if you decide to sit down, you are being told which way to go by the spiritual master, and you decide you want to sit down because it's just too hard, or you don't want to deal with it, and you don't want to engage in your service, so you just sit down on the path. That's where you're going to be. The spiritual master is not his job to. He may say, "Come on, get up," or whatever, or he this is the way. But he won't grab you by the hair. He won't pull you along on the path of this. This is an activity you must do. You have to tend to your own garden. You can't have other people tend to your garden for you. So the activity of devotional service, the activity. So once you know, then you apply the activity, and that is where the real growth happens. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Yeah. So you may not be a pure devotee, and you may be engaging in fruitive activities all over the place, but you are attracted to chanting for some reason, and they ask you to do something, you do something in service to the cause, and you may still have overseeing fruitive desires for that. You may do that because there's some girl that you like, and doesn't matter. It's like it's an activity of devotion, so therefore it's beneficial. So this is said that is a purifying effect upon the living entity, even in the conditioned state. Then, karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. We've started one of the Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami, and so I've started those classes. I've gotten to the introduction, and while we're doing this Srimad Bhagavatam as well. So we have a few videos on that so far, but I haven't quite started into the meat or the first chapter of the Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami. They have chalked out ways for classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. So yeah, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, spoke extensively about Bhakti Yoga and lived it in his life. Yet he did not write down more than 8 verses. He wrote down 8 verses, which encompassed in those 8 prayers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which one can chant the holy names of the Lord in humble state of mind, is one of them. But he did instruct his disciples to write down all the information into literature. So the 6 Goswamis, the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishna Das Kaviraj, and other great saints who follow the instructions of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda to compile the information for us to read, has done so. Okay, text 16. Shushrushoho Shradanasya Vasudev Kata Ruchi Shyan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. Shushrushoho, one who is engaged in hearing. Shradanashana, with care and attention. Vasudeva, in respect to Vasudeva. Kata, the message. Ruchi, affinity. Shayat, is made possible. Mahat Sevaya, by service rendered to pure devotees. Vipraha, O twice born. Punya Tirtha, those who are cleansed of all vice. Nishevanat, by service. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. So by the grace of God one finds Guru, by the grace of Guru one finds God. So we pray to God to give us a guide, someone who will show us the way to Krishna, and we are introduced to the pure devotee of Krishna. The pure devotee of Krishna then introduces us tells us what to do to come to Vasudeva, or to Krishna. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. Right? We decide, like Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, I will not fight. I will not listen. I have my own opinions. I have my own desires. I am God. And we have so many living entities in the material world who are acting on this platform. So, can you imagine? Everybody thinks they're God. Everybody wants to be served. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called Deva, or godly living beings, and there are men called the Shuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, a vivid description of the Asuras is given, in which it is said that the Asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These Asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries, according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. So, very important. Lord Jesus Christ was never claimed to be God, but his followers misinterpreted the scriptures to say that he was saying that he was God. He never said he was God. He's a Shaktavesha avatar. He's a empowered living entity by Krishna. This is a blasphemy created by the Asuras, and the demoniac followers of such Asuras are also pretenders as God or his incarnation. Yeah, so there's plenty of people out there who will also say that they are God, so-called gurus and swamis and pastors and people of all faiths and so-called faiths, and shapes, and sizes. In the revealed scriptures, there is a definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or as an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to the particular time and place. So the pure devotees of Krishna are to be worshipped like God not because they are God, but because they are the external manifestation of the compassion and mercy of Krishna. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of the devotee. He never really liked it when people were actually calling him God, although he did show his form from time to time, but he was in a mood of being a devotee of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, people who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hand and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, but an intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. So I mentioned this before, the devotee of God never really appreciates being worshipped as the devotee of God or receiving the same worship as Krishna, because they feel lower than the straw in the street, but they know that Krishna is very pleased when the devotee, so therefore they play along. And it's for our benefit to be giving our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual teachers accordingly. The Lord declares in Bhagavad Gita 18:69 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. So text 17. Shrinvatam sva katana Krishna punya slavana kirtana Sridanta stohi abdadrani vidyunoti srutshatam Shrinvatam, those who have developed the urge to hear the message of Sva Kata, his own words, Krishna, the personality of Godhead, Punya, virtues, Shravana, hearing, Kirtana, chanting, Hridiyanta Sthita, within one's heart. He, certainly, Abhandrani, desire to enjoy matter, Vidunoti, cleanses, Shrut, benefactor, Satam, of the truthful. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, text 17. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma supersoul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Purport. Messages of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenselessness, hearing, and glorification of God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Shikshashtaka, the 8 verses, declares clearly that the holy names of the Lord has all the potencies of the Lord, and that he has endowed his innumerable names with the same potency. There is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone can chant the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience. The Lord is so kind to us that he can be present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound, but unfortunately we have no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's name and activities. That's why it says in Lord Chaitanya says, I have no attraction for your names. We have already discussed developing a taste for hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord. The Lord is reciprocally responded to his devotees when he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has thus become eager to hear about him. The Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a few men want to go back to Godhead, but anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line fell victim to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. But when one is helped by the Lord himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. To become restless in the context of women and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from remote time, practically immemorial. So we've been training life after life to be away from Krishna. It takes time to recover from this foreign nature. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, gradually he realizes his real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbances, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind. So, pretty amazing. We will continue on to the next time. Namaste.